everybody. Welcome back to the Ultimate Tribute Band podcast. This is Roger. I'm very excited for tonight's show because we have a tribute that is kind of a legendary tribute out there in this world. They've been doing it for a long, long time. I believe they've been going at least 20 years, based in Southern California. And so they were there at the forefront of tributes. They've seen the wave of tributes happening. So we're excited to talk to Derek Fuller, who portrays Eddie Van Halen in Fan Halen, one of the longest running and best, most accurate, most authentic tribute to Van Halen out there. You can find them at fanhalen.com. Remember, that's fan, F-A-N, fanhalen.com. And Derek, thanks for the time. I appreciate you being on the show.
Absolutely. It's good to be here. I am, as you said, a veteran of the tribute scene, although there are older tribute bands. And in fact, some tribute bands that got me into the scene are still around. So people like Wild Child or even another Van Halen tribute band, the Atomic Punks, yep. One of the first ones I used to see back in the mid to late 90s. So they've been around even longer. But yeah, I've been doing this for 20 years.
And you've certainly seen a lot of changes and tributes really coming into their own. It's become quite the genre all on its own. It's booking a lot of shows now all over the country.
No doubt. I've always wondered what the longevity of this would be. And I think the true testament is people continue to come and more people continue to come, which blows me away. Right. So it looks like there's no end in sight for tribute bands for sure. Well, especially when you think about,
you're in for the long haul, it looks like, buddy. I mean, you've been doing it for 20 plus years. So apparently people are still coming. So there's no signs of stopping for you at this point.
Yeah, well, I mean, at some point I can't, at a certain age, I think it gets to a point where I don't know if I can do it, or does people really want to see an old guy portraying a young Eddie Van Halen? There's that.
And there's the leaping around, and it does take a wear and tear on you a little bit. So, You mentioned some of those earlier tributes, the other Van Halens and just tributes in general.
Yep.
Is that how you kind of got introduced to tributes in general, or give me your background as a musician to begin with? What were you doing before this?
Sure. So growing up as a kid, playing in a rock band and playing in Hollywood, doing all those things, and then ultimately needing to make a decision on what I wanted to do and be a career guy and have a family and have children, go get my MBA, have a career. All those things kind of got in the way. And then once my kids got old enough to not want to hang out with mom and dad anymore, somebody came to me with the old cliche, let's get the band back together. And that's what we did. So that kind of got me back into it. And then seeing other tribute bands, as I mentioned, Wild Child and certainly the Atomic Punks, and even an Elvis impersonator and all that kind of stuff, saying, hey, there's something here. And that's kind of what kind of springboarded me to doing a tribute band.
So Eddie Van Halen is a tall order. So either you had some serious chops to begin with, or you thought with work I can get myself there. How did it become a Van Halen tribute? Did it start as anything else? Was it always Van Halen? How did that begin?
Yeah, so for me, it was no other choice, just because, like so many millions of other guitar players, this guy influenced us all. And he was, my hero and all that good stuff. So from that standpoint and where my passion lies, it was definitely Van Halen. And as far as having the ability or the chops to be able to do it, nobody can. There's only one Eddie. Eddie is just, he's so untouchable. Nobody can fill his shoes, just nobody can. So what I do is pay tribute to Edward. I do play the best to my ability. Am I as good? Of course not. Someone said, hey, if you think about it, I actually did. I played Eruption at Sunset Sound in Hollywood. They had me come down. It's a long story, but they had me come down. I had to record, and I knew I was going to get, the faithful were going to, and I just thought to myself, well, guys, if I was really as good as Eddie, would I be wearing a wig on the weekends and playing at Yamava Casino? I mean, come on.
Oh, well, now we won't have Yamava as a sponsor, but that's okay.
Well, we love Yamava. We play there.
No, I got you. Yeah, I'll get that periodically. People say, are you really Huey Lewis? And I go, if I was, I wouldn't be boarding in Group B on Southwest Airlines.
Exactly right.
Carrying my own bag.
No doubt about it. So yeah, I don't make claims to be able to play as good as I don't think anybody can. I think Eddie is just one of a kind.
So it's a love of Van Halen that really, it was kind of like it was going to be Van Halen. There really was no other options for you as far as a tribute. So were there already players as part of your other bands in place, or did you have to put this whole thing together? You are a founding member of Van Halen, correct?
Exactly right. And the strange thing, there hasn't been that many members. Over the 20 years, I've had, I'm on my third singer. I'm on my third bass player. I'm on my maybe third drummer. So it hasn't been like,
Yeah,
I've had many of
it's
them
not
for
bad over.
well over. Yeah, so my singer's been in the band for almost 14 years now. I think in April will be
Wow.
14 years. My previous bass player was well over a decade. So these guys have been long time players and been with the band for a very long time. Um, but yeah, I've kind of been the consistent thread, for the band.
When it comes to finding players, was it just kind of putting the word out, or did you already have a circle of people that you kind of thought maybe I can tap this guy because he's kind of got a thing going, or did you just find some
Yeah, initially I think it
strangers?
was probably yeah, initially it was that. It was people maybe I knew and we didn't have anything to we're just starting out. I mean, as you know, any band's just starting out. There's a whole lot of a lot of work to be done to get to a certain level. But once we got to a level, finding replacement was a lot easier, right? Because the band is relatively successful. I wouldn't say it's successful. I look at it as like, you have a garage band, you have cover band, you got a tribute band. We're down here this, but relatively successful, playing some great venues and playing some great shows, and so it was relatively easy to find replacements as the band became more mature and more well known.
Yeah. You'll find them starting to seek you out and say, "Hey, when you need
Sure,
somebody, let me know," kind of thing. Sure.
absolutely, you get
And
those
and
messages.
and Derek is being very, very humble and modest. Fan Halen has played around the world, so they're doing quite a bit better than a garage band. They are very much a template for a lot of us guys that have been doing it for not nearly as long. I've been doing it just a little over half the time they have, and you're one of those bands that I looked at when I was starting out and knew that there's right ways to do this, there's wrong ways to do this, there's um, respectful and authentic ways to do this, and then there's cheesy and corny ways to do this. And I knew very early on that the highest level bands, they really don't go for that cheese and that corny. They go for authentic, and I think maybe the word is respectful, and they are respectfully recreating the music. And I think that's what you guys are for sure doing.
Well, I truly appreciate that. That's very, very nice of you to say. Our favorite comment when somebody is seeing the show or has seen the show and come up to us after and just say, "Hey, you took me back." It was like 1979. I was in high school. I had my girl, whatever it was, and to have them say that is the ultimate compliment and saying, "Well, thank you. I appreciate that." And
Yeah.
we took this back. We actually a kind of an anecdote, a side story to that. We played a Van Halen book release party. It was a book by Greg Renoff, and it had a book signing party or a book release party, I should say, in Pasadena with all these people who were around back in the day with Van Halen was playing backyard parties and playing the clubs. So it was very intimidating, as you could imagine, having to play in front of those people who grew up with that and saw it with their own eyes, these backyard parties or whether
Yeah.
Gazaris or wherever it might have been. And honestly, the majority of them all came up and said, "You just took us back." That I
My
mean, that was
my older
really
brother, who is the guitar player, one of the guitar players in our band, we grew up in LA, and
yeah,
he's got me by a few years, and he went to some of those backyard parties. He saw Van Halen in the
that's amazing.
backyards, and so they are an LA icon, Southern California legend band. Obviously, everybody knows Van Halen, and it's one of the reasons that there are quite a few tributes. I mean, you guys, the others you've mentioned, there's all female tributes to Van Halen.
Of
There's all
course.
kinds of variations of this. So the music certainly stands the test of time. You folks, you're kind of sticking to a specific era, specific genre, it sounds like. You're not really expanding into post David Lee Roth. That's a conscious decision. Was there any thought about maybe expanding it, or you thought, no, we're staying where we're at?
We have thought about it. It's not for me. I mentioned very earlier there was only one band for me to choose, and the passion and all that stuff behind it, and that would hold true to the David Lee Roth era. Although I enjoyed Sammy Hagar era, Van Hagar, I think of a completely different band. I went to go see it live.
That's how I think of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the passion just isn't there for me. I do like it. I love Eddie, so whatever he does, I'm gonna enjoy it. But it wasn't there for me to do that. Now we did have, and we did the Access TV show, the World's Greatest Tribute Bands. We played it twice. The second time we had a guest, Sammy, come on, and we
Okay.
consciously chose to play just Sammy Hagar songs. Or when we also played a song when Van Halen first got together with Sammy, they played a Led Zeppelin cover of Rock and Roll, so we chose to do that as well. We didn't play any of the Van Hagar, and it was just kind of to try to hold true that line of Van Halen is really a David Lee Roth era tribute band. So that's kind of
Interesting.
what we
That's
did
an
that.
interesting choice. Yeah, you did some Hagar, but you didn't do the Van Hagar kind of stuff. And I
That's
think of
correct.
them exactly the same way. To me, they're just two different bands, and
Yep.
I appreciate them both for what they are. But
Yes.
David Lee Roth is the quintessential and prototypical frontman. Um, there was, and a lot of people may not know, but there was an artist named Jim Dandy. You may know this, but
Of course.
David Lee Roth makes no bones about it. He goes, I kind of copied that guy.
Yeah.
And David Lee Roth took it to a level where frontmen were frontmen, kind of like Robert Plant frontmen. And then
Right.
David Lee Roth came along, and then every frontman after that in a rock band basically was a variation of David Lee Roth. He
Yeah. And just
created the template.
the the guitar players became Eddie Van Halen's. I mean,
Yes.
they all kind of went in that route. So that was such an amazing influence that this band had coming out in 1978. When you said exactly, it was Led Zeppelin, it was Bad Company, it was Aerosmith, it was Kiss, and then this band comes along and really changes. Throws everything completely
Yeah.
askewed and just
You got Diamond Dave, but then you have this guitar player that's doing stuff that just people just hadn't heard before. And
that's right.
nobody will ever say, I heard Eruption and went, oh yeah, I've heard that before. The first time you heard it, you went, this is nothing I've heard. This is nothing I've heard before.
You make a great point because a lot of people, younger people who don't realize that, right? They've heard it all their lives. So
Now it sounds, yeah.
yeah. So, and even like someone, if you even say, well, what about Jimi Hendrix and how was his, well, his playing it, but at the time, nobody heard that. It was just so alien. So it was very similar where Eddie was just so alien, where it was like, what is that?
Yeah.
What is he doing? And everybody just kind of went at one time, all guitar players went, what?
It was a seismic shift. It was like the Beatles. There was before the Beatles, then there was the Beatles, and then everything after. There was before Eddie, there's Eddie, and everything after. So, huge fan of all their music. So when you do your shows, has the your I mean, 20 years is a long time. Has there been any evolution into how you put this show together? Did it start one way? Did it morph? Did it organically happen? Did you make conscious decisions as far as the songs, the set lists? How do
Yeah.
you put what's the nuts and bolts of it, and how did it evolve over time?
Yeah, it's really about trying to, as we've talked about already a couple of times, of being authentic and really studying and understanding what they were doing on stage and trying to bring that energy. Of course, now our age and trying to act like we're in our 20s, and then what the energy they had is just untouchable. I mean, they were so on fire, and but we tried that. That's really kind of been the template, is just doing what they do and not trying to bring anything else into it. Like there's going to be no fog machines or smoke bombs or all that kind of, because Van Halen didn't do that. So we didn't do any of that. As far as set list is concerned, we're always expanding it because it's just fun, right? Just a fun. But it ultimately comes down to, we've tried to play, like if we're playing back-to-back shows on Friday night and Saturday night in the same venue, then we try to mix it up, of course,
Sure.
and try to say, give a reason for a fan to say, I'm actually going to go to both shows because they're going to be different. And we, have tried, like Friday night will be for the diehards. We're playing deep cuts, a lot of deep cuts. Come to that show, and then of course Saturday will be all the hits. But ultimately, what I found is you got to play the hits. You can see it on their face, and as a musician, I'm sure you've experienced this. You're playing a deep cut, and the crowd is there. They're sort of into it, but once you play a hit, all of a sudden they come to life. So we stick to the hits quite a bit, but we try to throw in deep cuts because we love it. The diehards love it, and they always appreciate it. Like they'll come up and go, "I can't believe you played, in a simple rhyme, or you played whatever, a deep cut like that."
Yeah, the venue dictates on some level. The crowd is going to dictate on some level. If it's a bit of a summery festival, they're that crowd's there every week for whatever band might be there that week. You stick probably more to those more mainstream hits as much as possible,
or even more so, Roger. What we'll do, like we do concerts in the park. That's what they didn't pay to see Van Halen, right? They want to. They're bringing their wine to the park,
yes.
So they want to be entertained. So then we'll bring out California Girls because David Lee Roth covered it.
Oh, okay.
We'll do Dancing in the Streets. We'll do Pretty Woman. We'll do all those covers that everybody can relate to and have heard a million times.
Yeah.
So we'll bring all those things out. For those types
even
of
even if they didn't know Van Halen covered, those songs, or David Lee Roth covered them as a solo, just a Gigolo, come on.
We have not done it.
Okay.
It would take
California Girls, good call.
Yeah.
Just like Paradise, that was a pretty rockin' tune from his solo stuff.
Yeah, we have tried it. We learned it. We played it twice.
Okay. There you go.
And I actually did a poll on Facebook, and I had the video of us playing it. And it was 2-1. Stick to Van Halen. Don't play
it. Dance with the guy who brung you, and go with what works, man. I think that's a smart thing, because if you do try to be something, everything to everybody, some of that authenticity has a risk of being, kind of watered down a little bit.
Absolutely.
And that's what you're sticking to.
We played a ZZ Top song once. We played ZZ Top because Van Halen did it. Beer Drinkers, Hellraisers. And some people got pissed off. Like, man, you wasted a song. We could have heard another Van Halen song, and you played ZZ Top. Can't please everybody.
Yeah, we get lucky because Huey does a cover. Almost every show they did a cover of "The Boys Are Back in Town" by Thin Lizzy. So
that's a great
song. It's a great song. It's a cover. Everybody knows it. And even if they're not a Huey fan, it's a great way to work in a song that people know. And we can get away with it because they did it a lot, because Huey used to play with Thin Lizzy when he was a young guy. So they would do it a lot. So when you are doing the songs, because Van Halen is a live, they're a live rockin' band, then you've got your album. So are you sticking to the album version? Do you do any kind of hybrids? Do you extend sections based on a live thing? How do you decide what variation or arrangement you're going to do?
For the most part, we do play the album. And Van Halen was, they didn't deviate too much. Of course, Eddie would throw in licks and do things, here and there. And I have some liberties to be able to do that. So from a live perspective, we'll change things up from like that.
But the arrangement's probably the same, essentially, the structure.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was, we do this once in a while. If you're familiar with the S Festival, they would play "I'm So Glad" by Cream in the middle of "Somebody Get Me a Doctor," and we have fun with that sometimes, and the diehards just love it.
Nice. Very cool. Do you feel like you've been doing this you've been doing this a long time, and you've seen a lot of bands. Do you have any opinion on like a band will do an album and then they'll do a tour, and they take a lot of liberties with their own song once they're doing them live. They've got it on the album and it's put away. And then the tour used to support the album so they could have some fun with it. Do you feel that sticking to the album version of songs on some level, I want to be delicate how I phrase it, that you can be somewhat more accurate than the actual band themselves?
I've never thought of it that way. My perspective has always been people are most familiar, 99% of the people are familiar with the album version. So that's what they're accustomed to hearing. So that's what we want to deliver. That's kind of been our mantra as far as how we were going to go, approach a song, is play it like the record. As I mentioned, Van Halen didn't do too much deviation, very little. It's just a matter of a riff here and there, and Eddie would just noodle all over the place, and I get to do that, and people seem not to mind that. And I really enjoy that too. And just once you get into, as you could probably attest to or relate to, once you get into playing a musician so long, you kind of get a feel for their riffs and how they do, and where they were going to do something, and you emulate that, and that can be a lot of fun as a musician.
Yeah, it's. I only ask that because I'll get talked to a few times after shows, and people that are like hardcore kind of fans, they kind of will make a comment that, in a way, look, I'm not Huey Lewis. I'll never be him. You'll never be Eddie Van Halen. Nobody would rather see us than them. But what they'll often say is seeing your show is in a way more fun because you really do the hits the way we remember them. You don't cut the song. You don't speed up the song. You don't do just a piece of the song. You do the song as we remember it. And let's face it, they're older now. You are still replicating them kind of in their prime.
So from that perspective, now, I kind of better understand what you're saying. And the way I look at it is nobody can, I truly believe this, not any tribute band, no band whatsoever can emulate the band at their prime. When Van Halen came out in 78 through 84, they were untouchable. Nobody could play like that. As they grew older, in the waning years of 2012, 2015, which was their last tour, you could make an argument that Van Halen sounds more like the album than Van Halen did in 2015, because you had Dave Roth singing very different, and you had Eddie Van Halen still exceptionally well. But was he that kid, that 25-year-old kid that was just unearthly? No, you could, the age and other things that he had gone through in his life. Certainly, you could see it in his playing, or I certainly could. Yeah. But he was still fantastic and still untouchable. But so could you could make an argument that Van Halen sounds more like the records do than the latter years of Van Halen? You could say that. And there's others that have said that, notably like Niels Lozauer, who is their photographer from 78 to 84 and went to so many tours. And he admitted that I'd rather see Fan Halen than Van Halen in the later years. So
I think that really hits kind of the point, and I think that might be part of, and you might speak to this as well, why tributes have become such a go-to choice for venues, booking agents. You don't see a lot of variety cover bands being booked as much for a lot of places where they used to be. Originals are always a challenge, and God bless the people that are making original music, and they do need their venues and they should get that music out there. But tributes are becoming, or have been for a decade now, and you're way at the forefront of it. You think that's part of why the tributes are such a popular choice, because it's a way to book something that a venue feels really, this is a good fit for us, and this is going to be a quality show for our clientele?
I think ultimately what it comes down to is in anything in business, it's about making money, and people enjoy tribute bands as people continue to get educated and understand what they are. When we originally started, how many comments I got, like, why aren't you guys playing your own music? Why are you doing this? All that kind of stuff. The analogy I would always give them is, well, you went and saw Ray Charles. You saw Jamie Foxx do Ray Charles. He won an Academy Award for his portrayal. You went and saw the Queen movie, and Robbie Malek won an Academy Award. We're basically doing that, but live. We are giving you, this is entertainment, and come to the show, and you're gonna, once you start to see it and understand, you're gonna get caught up in it, and you're gonna enjoy it. I promise you that. So I think it all stems from people really enjoy it. They come to these shows and they get caught up, and they hear music that they grew up with, and they're willing to pay to come see it. So that's why I think we play at such amazing venues, amazing festivals, and great casinos and all that stuff, is because people will come out and enjoy the music, and they're going to hire us.
I think that's a great analogy, the movies and the biopics and things like that, because people seem to love those things. But then every now and then I'll deal with a comment, and it's mostly social media stuff, and people look for something to complain about on social media.
Of course.
And,
all day long.
They'll kind of want to say, well, I only like the real band and you guys can never be them. And I kind of, I don't really engage, but it's kind of like, we don't think we are them, and we know we can't be them. We're just enjoying the music and performing it. Yeah. Like these biopics, it's a way to see this person in a way. Maybe unfortunately, we'll never see Van Halen on stage again. And right. You can't see Freddie Mercury. You can't see these artists. You can't see the Beatles. So,
that's right.
This is a great way to keep that music alive for another generation of people, and do it well, like you guys are doing it. If you don't mind, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to watch you guys in action. We're going to play a video of Fan Halen. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more. We're talking to Derek Fuller from Fan Halen. Check out a video. We'll be right back.
All right,
That is Fan Halen. So when you get a chance, please go check them out. I'm sure if you're in Southern California, you've probably had a chance to see them, but they go all over the place. They go all over the world. So I'm sure they'll come by you at some point, check their website, see where they're playing, and watch them. We're talking to Derek Fuller, who portrays Eddie Van Halen, the guitar player. So booking is always a challenge for a lot of bands. Maybe not so much at bands at your level, but it probably was at some point a challenge. Can you talk us through a little bit, maybe in those early days, how you did it and how things are going now for you, booking wise, management wise, and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, starting out, I've always, I've been a businessman my entire life. I just retired from Google, so it feels good to not be doing that anymore and just focusing on music and enjoying time with my wife and just enjoying life altogether. But starting out, I did most of the booking, but understanding what I mentioned about being a businessman, it's got to be, I knew that it had to be a win-win for everybody. So every time I, approached a venue, I played every house of blues in the country except Boston way back early on. That was all from me doing it and calling them up and explaining why they should hire us and what it would mean for them and what they'd get out of it, all that kind of stuff. So I did all of that initially. And then there was a booking agency out of Florida that was going to sign, where we were going to sign with, and we had a big contract. And my cousin is a entertainment lawyer. And so I threw the contract over to him. He redlined a bunch of stuff, and we were kind of reviewing it. We were playing at the Canyon Club, and we were reviewing it. And lo and behold, there at the Canyon Club was James Elliott and his business partner at the time, who headed up Atlantic Records back in the day when Zeppelin was there. And they were there to see Bonfire, the great AC/DC tribute band. And we were opening for them at the time. And they saw us, and they said, "Hey, we're interested in talking to you. We're here to see Bonfire, but we want to talk to you as well and maybe represent you guys and talk about booking your band." So we had a meeting at some posh hotel in Beverly Hills, and I was explaining to them, we have a contract that we're just reviewing now. And he says, "Contract? We don't do contracts. If you don't like us, you walk away. We don't like you, we walk away." And that relationship lasted almost 15 years with James Elliott, and enjoyed every minute and every aspect of working with James. James may have a certain reputation of, because so many people wanted to be on his roster, and he can only handle so much. So he had to refuse a lot of people, and he would bring shows because he would make contracts with venues, and then he would bring shows to other tribute bands, but he wouldn't represent them like he does Led Zeppelin or Fan Halen or Bonfire and a few, like maybe 2 or 3 others. So we worked with him for many, many years. And then most recently, at the end of last year, we signed on with Big Time Entertainment, which is BIGG. Sullivan Big is the owner's name. And he does Vince Neil, Steve Piercy, Stryper, Queensryche, Great White, Ace Frehley, all these bands, and also does the Iron Maidens. And if you look at the Iron Maidens schedule, they play worldwide. They open up Rexette. They do amazing things. So we're super excited to be represented by Big Time Entertainment. And we're on M3 with Bret Michaels and Twisted Sister. We're playing Rocklahoma. We're playing opening for Ace Frehley and Steven Adler. We're doing all these amazing shows and kind of taking that tribute band to the next level, working with them. So we're really excited about it. And looking very forward to 2024. We're already our calendar and schedule is getting very full with amazing and exciting shows. So it's very exciting.
That is very exciting. And so Big Time essentially books actual national hard rock acts, and then Iron Maidens and you are their 2 tributes right now that they've taken on, basically.
Yeah, and they have Paradise Kitty, so it's a 3rd one.
Gotcha. All female Guns N' Roses.
Exactly right.
I love tribute band names.
Yeah. I love
the creativity.
I didn't choose ours. I didn't come up with ours. We had the run-of-the-mill Panamas and the Unchained or whatever we were. And then my drummer, my current drummer, who was way back when, he kind of left and came back. He was actually in DSP for a while, or Lights when they were Lights before they became DSP. But anyway, he came up with the name, and we just thought it was brilliant because You want to be able, what I tell people who are starting out in tribute bands is you want that name to be what's on the marquee, you know exactly what it is. So if you have the name Panama, that could be a steel drum band, who knows what that is.
Right.
But when you see Fan Halen, you know that this is a Van Halen tribute band.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect fit of a name, and considering you were early on, and there was essentially only one other one happening at the time, you had your choice of names. I think you picked an absolute perfect one. It just alliteration wise, it works. It rhymes. It sounds familiar. It all locks in. It gets you exactly what you're looking for. Like,
and by the way, Eddie Van Halen loved it. So
there you go. You can't get a better seal of approval than that.
Exactly.
So if you don't mind me touching on, we don't want to get too deep into other bands, but when you are a tribute to a band that has other tributes and close by, kind of covering the same geography,
sure.
How did you, just in the big picture, how do you differentiate? How do you get yourself going when you go, well, we already know about so-and-so, so we want to, what do we look at you for, kind of thing?
Right. No, so I mean, the Atomic Punks was the high watermark of tribute bands, not only Van Halen. They were just one of the best tribute bands out there. And initially, as I mentioned, my passion was Van Halen. There wasn't going to be anything else. I wanted to do it, knowing that I had one of the greatest tribute bands that I'm competing with. So, not to divert the conversation, but I ended up joining a Motley Crue band that had a great singer, because I knew I could get, with my background in business, I knew I could get us into the same rooms the Atomic Punks were playing, because the band was very, very good and the singer was amazing. So I did do that. But ultimately what happened with Van Halen is our competitor, the singer, went on to bigger and better things, mainly Steel Panther, which had different iterations.
That's a tough gig to turn down.
And well, they grew that whole thing. They started they did it. I think it was Metal School, Metal Shop, and then ultimately Steel Panther when they broke out all by themselves. So and they do an amazing job. They sound great. They are amazing and all that good stuff. So when that did happen, however, that was our opportunity. That went from here's the Atomic Punks, here's that. We went right up here, and then we could slowly surpass them. Ultimately, what happened was when we got to about here, my singer jumped ship and went to Atomic Punks. So, what am I going to do? That happened. And then, it took us a few things, and then, I had to work on this. And then finally we got to what we have. So,
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a fascinating part of the whole thing when you pick a band, when there's other tributes and you're the new kid in town kind of thing. So, you kind of see what's in front of you.
It takes a long time, when I always look at it like this, you could either pick a very popular band, and if you're a Beatles or you're the Rolling Stones, Zeppelin, the Doors, these top tier bands, Pink Floyd, Queen, but you're going to have a lot more competition when you try to do those type of tribute. Or you can go a little bit more obscure. You can do a Kaje Gugu, where you have one hit and you try to make it happen, and you have no competition. Yeah. So you got to have this balance. So you got to kind of figure out where you want to be. Try to do something like a Quiet Riot where you'll have no competition, or you do a Rat and there's hardly any competition, or you pick a Van Halen and now you got a lot of competition.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I mean, if your strength is to do a band who happens to have multiple tributes, but that's your strength, you got to go with it. You got to write it. You got to try it. You got to see what you can do and get your little bit of the market there. I would say, hey, look, there's Coke, there's Pepsi, there's other products out there, and people are interested in what fits one won't fit the other. So I really appreciate all that you are doing. Talk about the show itself in terms of the logistics of putting it together. It's four guys on stage. Yeah. What's the support around you guys? Do you have a road crew? Do you have a sound guy? How do you run your show? Is it all in ears? You're building guitars? Is he building drums? Are you matching, instrument for instrument kind of thing? Do you have a, Frankenstrat, going?
Yeah, I've got all that. All my guitars, every band guitar you can imagine. But it's interesting because it's one thing. I'm so lucky and blessed that Eddie would only play one guitar for an entire show. I'm not a Joe Perry or a Jimmy Page. You got to have 7 different guitars, even Bon Jovi, they bring in all these different guitars. Eddie played one guitar, so I'm good with one guitar on stage and having my backup if a string breaks, and I'm great. So that really helps. When I travel, I typically put out a post to say, hey, I'm coming to Seattle. Can somebody bring me an Eddie guitar that I'll use as a backup? And I always get somebody to say, heck yeah, because there's so many Eddie Van Halen fans all over the world.
Right.
So from that standpoint, it's pretty easy. We all do our own thing. We've talked about it, like ultimately it would be great to travel with a sound guy who knows us and knows what we want and could dial us in every night. And we always thought, well, maybe we'll get to that point and that would be feasible. And we still kind of been talking about it, We've talked about doing having our own travel, like there's not the long run, but Desperado travels with all their in-ears, their own board, so that they always have the same, mix in their ears. We've talked about exploring that and doing that, but we ultimately just never have. We just kind of go in. The drummer wears ears because he plays tracks, jumps and all weights and all those sounds you hear in Panama and Running with the Devil and all that kind of stuff. So he triggers all that and he's hearing it all. But none of us wear in-ears. Our singer should. He knows he should. He just doesn't. I don't know why.
So you're you're still kind of a meat and potatoes road band that way.
We're totally meat and potatoes.
You go
band.
in with the house sound and what you got. You put in a couple of requests of things you need when you're playing. And
you can make an argument that the house knows their room better than anybody and knows how to get the best sound out of it. Obviously you're relying on them making us sound good. Van Halen is guitar, bass, drum, and some amazing backing vocals. And if we can pull that off, it's not like we're trying, we're not a 10-piece. We're not trying to do something crazy. So it's pretty meat and potatoes for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome though. So yes, I was going to make a green M&Ms joke, but I figured you don't have to ask for that. So I know when you're playing local and something you drive to, you're going to have the wall of amps kind of behind you and all that good stuff. But when you're on the road, is that all scaled back to? It's whatever you can fly with, right?
Exactly right. We'll try to ask for a lot of backline to fill it up, but we don't often get that. I play through digital stuff because digital has gotten so good. If it's good enough for Metallica, it's good enough for me. I've got everything dialed in for Eddie's tones and all his effects that he uses. It's just so easy. I got a backup, and I get consistency. When you're playing through a tube amp, high gain tube amp, there's so many variables. There's a mic that's sitting in front of it. The room sounds different. There's feedback. All those things that can happen. And I love playing through digital. The only thing that I miss, of course, is that thump and feeling it in my chest.
Right.
But the convenience and the consistency surpasses that thump in my chest.
I think that's almost word for word what every guy I play with, and I feel the same way, is the one thing you miss is kind of that pushing the air thump, but when you compare that to the convenience and the lightweight and the travelability of essentially digital, and you got a pedal board and you got a modeler and you're kind of good to go. It's tough to grab an amp again, and take it with you. So I love what you're doing. I love the attention to detail. I respect the amount of time you have put in, Derek. It really is inspiring. How long do you think you guys are going to keep going? Is it as long as people are buying tickets, or as long as you can keep jumping and doing splits in the air and playing?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I do. What is different is when I walk into a venue, the first thing I look at is how high that riser is. I'm going to be jumping off it.
Right.
Or if there's a step, sometimes they put steps in front of the riser so the drummer can get on it. I'll look for those things to put those in front of the riser so we can jump off.
Oh, that's funny.
But I think it's definitely, here's what I've come to realize is, yes, I'm getting older. But my audience is getting older with me. And when they look at me, if the audience is my age or around my age or grew up with this music, they're not looking at me and going, oh, look at that old man playing Eddie Van Halen with a wig on. They're not seeing it that way. They're just seeing it as they've always seen it, and they're just growing old with me. Like I remember playing, oh my God, we're playing a 40-year birthday party. Oh my God, we're playing a 50-year-old birthday party. Oh my God, we're playing a 60-year-old birthday party. And we just keeps going. So my thought is it will continue to grow, continue to go. As long as people are coming, I'll continue to do it. I do, and I mentioned this in my interview notes, that I do see that the youngsters are starting to gravitate towards it. There is a young Van Halen band out of Ohio who does an amazing job. They're 29, the same age as David Lee Roth was. This kid can jump, he can sing. They've done their homework, because I know what it takes to do this show, and I watch them. I go, yeah, they're doing a very, very good job. So I know there's a very young Beatles tribute band out there. And if you put yourself maybe in the audience shoes, what would you rather see? You know, guys in their late 50s pretending to be Van Halen in their 20s? Or do you want to see guys in their 20s pulling this off, portraying Van Halen at the same age they were? Right. So I think ultimately the youngsters will catch on that this is a great way to earn money, to make you can make a living, certainly, in a tribute band. Play amazing venues, play all over the world. We were going to play Australia. The contract terms were not for us. We ultimately had to pass on it, and they chose the youngsters after us. So they took those terms, which is certainly fair. But I see that the youngsters are maybe catching on. Now, my kids, my youngest son is a musician. He plays his own music. He plays in an amazing band with another band out of LA. They have all original music. And I said to my son at one point, because he works at Guitar Center in Hollywood, I said to him, why don't you do on the side, why don't you do like a Bob Dylan tribute, man? There's no Bob Dylan. You would be amazing at it. You got the perfect hair. You got the perfect talent for it. It would be awesome. Just tribute band, no way. So, not all kids are going to go for it, but
yeah, when you're young, it's still about you got to get your music out there. And like I said, God bless them. I mean, I don't, I can see where some people might say, tribute band is like, oh, well, that's the best you can do. You kind of, it's like, man, I think it's just people that kind of do see it that way. It's like, I really think you're looking at a very short-sighted way of looking at it. And it really is more of, you grew up with this music. This music had an impact on you, and you've had a chance now for 20 plus years to impart that music to others. And it gives you a probably an amazing feeling. It obviously gives the fans an amazing feeling. I think it's a win-win all the way around. And I think it's something to be proud of. And the legacy you guys have built is something for sure to be proud of.
Absolutely. I mean, every weekend we get to go out there, and I see it on their faces. I see what we're relieving the stress of the work week. And I honestly, what I do is I try to take something away from each show. Like I'll come up to the front and all of a sudden go into Panama, and I see this woman's face go, oh, I'm taking that one. That one's coming with me. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or I'm sitting on the side waiting for my drummer to finish the intro to Hot for Teacher so I can go out there. This is cool. I'm just going to take this with me. I try to take a little something from each of these shows, but really we're bringing so much joy to so many people. And I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's true. I see it. I see it every time we play, and the crowds get bigger and more excited as we continues to do this. So it is a blessing that we get to do this. I love doing it. I enjoy the hell out of it. Obviously, other people are, because they keep coming. So it's just a blast.
Well, that's a perfect wrap up. I think that's what everybody should be taking away from this. And that's one of the goals of this podcast, was kind of talk about how that's how we try to see these things. And we genuinely feel that way. Cheesy, corny, however you want to say it, music is that kind of an impact. And it's a great to be a little piece of it. So Derek Fuller, I really appreciate you being on the show. Fan Halen, everybody. It's the band. You know the tribute. FanHalen.com is where you're going to find them. Facebook, Instagram is @Fan Halen. Your X or Twitter, if you still are old school, it's Twitter, @Fan Halen Tribute. YouTube, you got VH Tribute, right? So thanks again for being on, Derek. We really appreciate it. Keep it up, buddy. Keep doing it as long as you can. I'll get out there and see you guys. Thanks so much for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Thanks, everybody, for checking out the Ultimate Tribute Band podcast for this week. We will see you again soon. Have a great night. That'll do it for today's show. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Really means a lot to me. If you are interested in being a guest on the show, email me at roger@tributebandpodcast.com. Or if you have questions for future guests, you can email me as well. We'll talk to you again soon. Thanks for watching the Ultimate Tribute Band podcast. Please like, subscribe, share, tell somebody about it. Talk to you soon.